Good morning. It's a wonderful day. Going to begin learning Masechta Middos. Begin learning DaAs Tevunos of the Ramchal. Masechta Middos teaches us how the second Beis Hamikdash was built, its dimensions, the structure, the various rooms. And it's a wonderful, wonderful day. The Rebbeinu Shalom has tremendous nachas. When Yidden learn Torah, specifically Bezman Hazeh, we learn in Yoni Beis Hamikdash. By learning in Yoni Beis Hamikdash, we become familiar with it. The yearning to see the Beis Hamikdash will become greater. And the yearning itself is part of bringing the Beis Hamikdash, as Rav Hutner explains in several Pachad Yitzchoks in the Mamori, Pachad Yitzchok for Pesach, the tzapiyah, the yearning for the Beis Hamikdash itself is part of building the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, we find that David yearned to build the Beis Hamikdash, but for reasons that the Rebbeinu Shalom told David couldn't build the Beis Hamikdash, it was left to Shlomo HaMelech. Yet we say every morning in Psukei de Zimra, Kapitel Tehillim, Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis LeDavid. It's a song for the Chanukas Habayis of David. Now, David didn't build the bayis. Shlomo built the bayis. But we call it David's bayis, Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis LeDavid, because through his yearning to build it, his desire to build it, his passion to build it, although he wasn't Zeicha to build it with his hands, and Shlomo built it with his hands, but it's Shir Chanukas Habayis LeDavid. The yearning itself is part of the building of the Beis Hamikdash. And so through learning Masechta Middos, we're going to get an idea of how it was built, the beauty of this building that's the palace of the Rebbeinu Shalom on this world. It's the Dira B'Tachtonim, the central Dira B'Tachtonim of the Rebbeinu Shalom in this world. And we're going to be learning Masechta Middos not as architects who are looking and studying a plan, but actually the construction people will be building the Beis Hamikdash, because by studying it, not only do we have the schus, as the Gemara says at the end of Menachos, where you study the halachas of korbanos, it's as if you brought the korban. Similarly, it says in Svarim, when you study about the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, it's as if you built the Beis Hamikdash. And again, going back to Rav Hutner's Pachad Yitzchok, by learning about the Beis Hamikdash, you yearn for it, and the yearning becomes part of the process of building the Beis Hamikdash. We're going to see that Masechta Middos basically deals with the second Beis Hamikdash. But through the learning about the second Beis Hamikdash, we're going to be able to get a lot of information about the first Beis Hamikdash and information about the third Beis Hamikdash. Although Masechta Middos discusses the second Beis Hamikdash, second Beis Hamikdash had to be built to a great degree in the format, and had to be very similar in structure to the first Beis Hamikdash, as the Pasuk says in Divrei Hayomim, Akol b'chsav miyad Hashem olai hiskil. All the information about building Beis Hamikdash came directly from the Rebbeinu Shalom, and therefore the dimensions, the measurements, the way the first Beis Hamikdash looked was Baruch HaKodesh. This is God-given. And therefore, the second Beis Hamikdash was to a great extent built exactly as the first Beis Hamikdash. There was some changes made, and that was due to certain drushes that Chazal had on Psukim. But to a great extent, it was the same form and the same dimensions. And the third Beis Hamikdash, B'Meher of Yameinu, will also guard that Ruach HaKodesh, and to a great extent, the dimensions will be guarded for the third Beis Hamikdash as they were for the first and the second Beis Hamikdash. Now, the third Beis Hamikdash, this is a very interesting thing. when the second Beis Hamikdash was built in the times of right after the Nes of Purim, the second Beis Hamikdash was built or finished. By the time the second Beis Hamikdash was being built, listen to this. By the time the second Beis Hamikdash was being built, Yecheskel Hanavi had already prophesied what the third Beis Hamikdash will look like. So the second Beis Hamikdash was not even built yet, and Yecheskel has prophesied about what the third Beis Hamikdash will Eretz Hashem look like. Why was Yecheskel talking about a third Beis Hamikdash when there was not even yet a second Beis Hamikdash? That's a separate discussion that we'll have at some point. But we need to know that, and that's important. Excuse me one second. That's important because the second Beis Hamikdash, the Rambam tells us, the one we're going to be studying, the second Beis Hamikdash had many parts and many dimensions that were similar to the first Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash, they already began to incorporate certain forms and dimensions from the third Beis Hamikdash. So the second Beis Hamikdash became a medium point. It's part first Beis Hamikdash and part third Beis Hamikdash. However, the majority of the psukim in Yecheskel that discuss the building of the third Beis Hamikdash are not understandable. Rashi says that in Yecheskel. They're not understandable. The Rambam says that as well. We can't really picture what this third Beis Hamikdash is going to look like specifically in dimensions. But that which we do understand appears to have been incorporated into the second Beis Hamikdash. So the Rambam tells us in his Pirush the introduction to Pirush HaMishnah, it's important to understand Masechta Middos because many of the dimensions and the forms in the Masechta Middos, which deals with the second Beis Hamikdash, are also going to be used to build the third Beis Hamikdash b'mheira v'yameinu. So not only is studying Masechta Middos, studying the history of the second Beis Hamikdash, it's also architectural plan to a certain degree for the third Beis Hamikdash. And in that context, the Tosfos Yontif, one of the most famous commentaries on Mishnah, in his introduction to Masechta Middos, he quotes this Rambam, that for the third Beis Hamikdash, it's going to be important to know the dimensions of the second Beis Hamikdash. And he makes the following comment. Because through the understanding of the Mishnayos and Middos, which help us understand the dimensions of the second Beis Hamikdash, that's going to help us understand the difficult psukim in Yecheskel about the building of the third Beis Hamikdash. And the Tosfos Yontif says, if Masechta Middos was not written down, and we wouldn't know how the second Beis Hamikdash was built, lo matzonu yadeinu v'ragleinu, we wouldn't be able to find our hands and our feet. But oser habinyan ha'osen she'ibonim b'mheira v'yameinu. We would have no understanding of how to build the third Beis Hamikdash if we didn't have Masechta Middos to help us explain the building of the second Beis Hamikdash. Now I want to say a few things about studying Masechta Middos. Not only is it teaching us how the second Beis Hamikdash was built, it teaches us how, to a certain degree, the third Beis Hamikdash will be built. The handouts that you have from Masechta Middos, which we'll get to, today, there are about 12 pages of handouts. Obviously, we're not doing it all today. It's just a preparation for days to come. The Mishnayos that we're using is called Mishnayos Siyata Dishmaya. It's a wonderful set of Mishnayos. It has a lot of explanation and a lot of good pictures. So I selected Siyata Dishmaya Masechta Middos. We thank the Mechaber, we thank those who printed the Sefer for this wonderful opportunity to study Masechta Middos in depth with commentary and pictures. In the introduction to this set of Mishnayos on Masechta Middos, he says three things. He says it in summary, he develops the ideas later. Kemat mefurish b'kra, sha'oskim b'limud tzuras beis hamikdash yizku l'tchias hamesim. It's virtually a pasuk, a very clear pasuk, that those who study Masechta Middos and the dimensions of the Beis Hamikdash, they have a special schus for tchias hamesim. It's literally learned out from a pasuk. So, Baruch Hashem will learn Masechta Middos to be able to build the third Beis Hamikdash, and we have the schus for tchias hamesim. Second, he says that through studying the Masechta Middos and the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, as we mentioned earlier, it's as if literally we built the Beis Hamikdash. So those of us who are studying Masechta Middos, we will not just be studying something, we will be building something. Unlike an architect who draws plans, the plans remain on a piece of paper. That's what they are. And then the Shiputznik has to come and look at the architect's plans and actually build at two different stages, the picture and the building. When you study the pictures, and specifically the pictures, when you study the pictures, there's a Radak that talks about the pictures. When you study the pictures and you study the Mishnayos, it's not an architectural plan. You are building the Beis Hamikdash. So there is this ongoing debate whether the third Beis Hamikdash is coming straight down from heaven and we don't have to build anything, which Rashi talks about in at least two places. Or will we actually build it with our hands? This is ongoing debate. The middle position is that the Beis Hamikdash will come down from Shemayim, ready built, but it will only come down from Shemayim ready built because we built it here to study Masechta Middos. So by studying Masechta Middos, we speed up the process of bringing down the Beis Hamikdash. So while it'll come down complete, we will still be the ones who constructed it because through studying the Mishnayos, it will come down from Shemayim. There's also an interesting thing about Masechta Middos, and this goes back to a story with Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin. Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin was the Rav in Yerushalayim many years ago, and a Yid came to him and said that there's a goy trying to kill him. Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin told him to study Masechta Middos. If you study Masechta Middos, it'll protect you from the goy. And Kachava, this Yid was protected from the goy, and the story got around that Yeshua Leib Diskin told someone to study Masechta Middos as some kind of protection from bad things, from evil things. The Rabbanim in Yerushalayim tried to analyze the story after Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin was nifta, and they wanted to figure out what is it about Masechta Middos that leads to protect people from goyim, from bad things, from corona. What is it about Masechta Middos that can be actually act as a protection? And the elders of Yerushalayim, the Talmidei Chacham Yerushalayim, came to the conclusion that there's nothing special about Masechta Middos. The reason why the goy couldn't attack the Jew is because Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin told him to study Middos, and he listened to Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin. The protection was listening to the Gadol. Because if the Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin had told him to learn Baba Kama, and he learned Baba Kama, it would have been the same thing. It wasn't the Middos, it was listening to Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin. When the Satmar Rebbe, Zechron Tzaddik Livrocha, heard the story, he said, no, Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin didn't just pick some Masechta. he specifically picked Middos. And I'll tell you why he picked Middos. Because we learn in Shmuel Beis, Shmuel Aleph, we learn in Shmuel Aleph that when at some point when Shaul was chasing David and wanted to kill him, it says that David ran away to the Ramah, not our Ramah. There's a place called Ramah. And he went there to speak with Shmuel Hanavi, who was still alive. And the Gemara explains through the Psukim that what David was studying with Shmuel was how to build the first Beis HaMikdash, where to build the Mizbeach. There was a question where to build the Beis HaMikdash, Mizbeach, and they came to the conclusion what mountain the Beis HaMikdash needs to be built on, specifically the Beis HaMikdash. And Shaul was never able to get to David. So you see, Rav Satmar Rebbe said that by David studying with Shmuel how to build the Beis HaMikdash, he was saved from Shaul. That's why Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin told this Yid to study Masechta Middos. Because if you study Masechta Middos, God will protect you the same way He protected David when Shaul was chasing after him. So we should be zeicha to all these wonderful things. We zeicha to Tchias HaMeisim. We should be zeicha that mamish we build the Beis HaMikdash, and by building the Beis HaMikdash, we give the Rebbeinu Shalom a tremendous nachas. And through building the Beis HaMikdash, He'll send His Beis HaMikdash down to earth. We'll be zeicha in the interim to a shmira from all the things that are happening outside that are attacking our gashmias and our ruchnias. Okay, so to start the Masechta, we need to look at what was sent out, something called diagram 1. It looks like this. That's diagram 1. And the reason it's important to look at diagram 1 is because I'm going to turn everybody's head, as I once had to do in a shiur, a men's shiur, when we were learning a Mishnah about the Beis HaMikdash. The way we look at the Beis HaMikdash is we go to the Kosel Ma'aravi. And the Beis HaMikdash is behind the Kosel Ma'aravi. If you're standing at the Kosel Ma'aravi and you look to your right, imagine, close your eyes for a moment, you're at the Kosel. To your right is where they did the deep digs. And we call that the southern wall. And at the southern wall, there are two sha'orim, there are two gates. And those gates, we call them Sharei Hulda Hanafiyah. Okay. So from our perspective, we stand at the Kosel, and on this side, our right side, they have the digs, and we can see the southern wall. We see there are two arches for Hulda Hanafiyah. That's not the right way to look at the Beis HaMikdash. The right way to look at the Beis HaMikdash is standing on Har HaZeisim and looking towards the Beis HaMikdash. Because when you're standing on Har HaZeisim, you're looking at the eastern gate to the Beis HaMikdash, and that to a certain degree is how people entered. Whether they actually entered from there or from the south, we'll leave that for now. The point is, the way to look at the Beis HaMikdash and to study Masechta Middos is to understand that we're standing on Har HaZeisim and we're looking down. Now, when you look down from Har HaZeisim, we see two arches, and the arches are now sealed. That is now called, we call them the Shar HaRachamim, and there's a Kabbalah that Eliyahu Hanavi is going to go through the Shar HaRachamim. Now the Arabs, because they're so advanced intellectually, they know that Eliyahu, according to our Messiah, Eliyahu is Pinchas, and Pinchas is a Kohen. So the way they're going to stop Mashiach Tzidkenu from coming, Chas v'Shalom, is an old Arab plan. If you've ever been on Har HaZeisim or you walk in the back on a tour, back of the eastern wall, you see that the Arabs built a cemetery right in front of the Shar HaRachamim. And they built a cemetery there because Eliyahu was Pinchas, and Pinchas is a Kohen. The Kohen can't go into a cemetery. So now the Jews can't get Eliyahu, and if they can't get Eliyahu, they can't get Mashiach because there's a cemetery there. And that's it. And so they sealed up the door because Eliyahu was not coming, and they put a cemetery there. Obviously, that's a big joke for many, many reasons, but that's why there's a cemetery and the door is sealed. So if you're standing on Har HaZeisim, you will see the Shar HaRachamim, 2 arches again, and it's sealed. That's the way you need to imagine the Beis HaMikdash. So now, if you're looking down from Har HaZeisim, which is the opposite view of the Kosel Maravi, where is the southern wall? To your right or to your left? Now it's to your left, because when you are looking at the Beis HaMikdash from the Kosel Maravi, from the west, the southern wall was on your right. When you go up to Har HaZeisim and you switch perspectives and you're looking down east towards west instead of west-east, you're now looking from the Har HaZeisim. Those 2 doors, those 2 sh'or will now be on your left. So now we need to get this perspective in our mind. We're on Har HaZeisim, and we're looking east to west. The southern wall is on the left. The northern wall is on the right. And the Kosel Maravi is west, ahead of us on the west. And we are standing on the east on Har HaZeisim. Har HaZeisim east, Kosel Maravi west, Kosel Dromi, where the digs are being done, is on the left side, and the northern wall is on the right side. Okay, now that's the perspective you get in diagram 1. Okay, in diagram 1, you're looking at from Har HaZeisim. This is the eastern gate. You're walking in to the Har HaBayis. This outside wall is the wall of the Har HaBayis. You walk in through that eastern gate and you're in the Har HaBayis, but you are not in the Beis HaMikdash. This structure is the Beis HaMikdash. You then continue walking east towards west, and you keep on going and going and going and going and going when you can, if you can. And this back wall is the Kosel Maravi. This is the western wall of the Har HaBayis, not the western wall of the Beis HaMikdash. This is the western wall of the Har HaBayis. So we're on Har HaZeisim. We'll come moving in east towards west, and here's your Kosel Maravi. Here's your southern wall. Here's your northern wall, eastern wall, western wall. And that's the perspective you need to have. If at any time you get confused about how this thing works, always pull out your diagram 1. I understand that Shmuel distributed all the handouts. These would be important to print them out. This is the picture to look at when you get confused in your perspective. East, north, west, south. That's your diagram 1. This is your diagram 2. Okay? And this will help you understand what I just said. East. Okay. You're entering east, you're going west. Okay? And that will be your perspective. Now, if you're looking at this picture, as I explained to you, there are two gates. These two gates are on the southern wall. These are Sharei Chulda. These are the two arches we see when we go to the Beis Hamikdash, when we go to the Kosel. And right over here, in this place, is where the digs are going on that we see. And these are the two gates. On your picture, if you're holding the picture, this southern wall is now to your left. East, south, west, north. And it says it on your picture. Tzafon, Doron, Mizrach, Ma'ariv. And the Beis Hamikdash is in here. And the area around the Beis Hamikdash, this whole place is called the Har Habayis. And on the Har Habayis, there's a Beis Hamikdash. Here's the structure, this building. And this is the open part of the Har Habayis. Okay, that's the picture you have to have in your mind. And as you can see, to get into the Har Habayis, there are 5 openings. 1 in the east, 2 in the south, 1 in the west, and 1 in the north. There are 5 gates. We're not talking about the Beis Hamikdash. We're talking about the Har Habayis. There are 5 gates through which one can enter or leave the Har Habayis. Whether all 5 were used or not, we'll learn in Masechta Middos. But there were 5 gates to the Har Habayis. And as you can see, the Beis Hamikdash itself is not in the center of the Har Habayis. It's built towards the north with a lot of space on the south. And that was done for a specific reason, which we'll learn in Masechta Middos. But the building is not in the center. It's off to the north, with leaving a lot of room on the south. So again, your perspective always has to be, I'm on Har HaZeisim, and I'm looking east to west. And therefore east, west, south, and north. Okay, let's go into it. Let's start learning Masechta Middos. So this is page 1 of the handout. And the Mishnah begins, B'shlosha makomos hakohanim shomrim b'beis hamikdash. There are 3 places where the Kohanim had to guard the Beis Hamikdash. Let's stop there. Before we get into the 3 places, let's talk about this mitzvah. It's a mitzvah of Shmiras Beis Hamikdash. It's a biblical mitzvah. It's one of the 248 mitzvahs I say that the Beis Hamikdash is to be guarded like a palace. Let's take a look now on page 1 of the handout. In the Siyata Dishmaya, it says, there's bold words, it says, Mitzvahs Shmiras Hamikdash, the mitzvah of guarding the Beis Hamikdash. Mitzvahs Aseh is a positive commandment, one of the 248 mitzvahs. Shiur HaKohanim v'Leviim Shomrim Es Hamikdash, that the Kohanim and the Leviim need to guard the Beis Hamikdash. As we'll learn later in the Mishnah, the Kohanim guarded the Beis Hamikdash in 3 places, and the Leviim guarded the Beis Hamikdash in 21 places. Altogether, there are 24 guard posts. V'hu Omer Yis'al La'aron, v'atu v'necha itcha l'fnei oil ha'edes, klom atem tiyu l'fonav tomid, v'chei Omer v'shomu es l'shmeres oil moed, v'gam yesh lo saseh shlo l'vatul shmiras hamikdash, shenemar, and I'm turning now to page 2 of the handout, u'shmartem es mishmeres hakodesh, v'loshen shmira azhorihi, holamadata sheshmirasei mitzvahs aseh, u'bitul shmirasei mitzvahs lo yisaseh. These psukim teach us that there's one of the 248 commandments in the Torah is that the Beis Hamikdash has to be guarded. There's also a negative commandment. One of the 365 negative commandments is that we don't stop guarding the Beis Hamikdash. If the guards leave their post, a violation of a biblical commandment is there. So it's one of the 248 positives and one of the 365 negatives. I'm now going to the bottom of page 2 in the Chemdas Yisrael, and Chemdas Yisrael footnote Hey, an amazing, interesting footnote. Should we be guarding the Beis Hamikdash today? Now, there's no Beis Hamikdash. Do we have to be guarding the place of the Mikdash or guarding the Beis Hamikdash? So here's a very interesting comment. Da, the Bishnas Tov Reish Mem in the year 1840, right, long time ago. Nechelchu gedoyle eretz in mitzvah shmiras hamikdash neheges gam bizman hazeh. There was a machlokes between gedolim whether this positive mitzvah to guard the mikdash needs to be done today. In other words, the place of the mikdash needs to have guards, not only if there is the Beis Hamikdash. The ayin bechinuch shekosav v'noihegis b'koyhanu u'luvim b'schorim b'zman habayis. The Sefer Chinuch, he's a Rishon. He clearly says that the mitzvah to guard the Beis Hamikdash is only when the Beis Hamikdash stood. Therefore, today, the mitzvah of guarding the Beis Hamikdash can't be done, as other mitzvahs unfortunately can't be done. Omnam harav hamakubal Reb Hillel Moshe Marshall Gelbstein Zefon Lebrocha Higdalas a Sefer Goldel Hanikra Mishkanos Arba Yaakov Al Nyone Beis Hamikdash. There's a great Talmud Chacham. He was a Makubal also. His name was Reb Moshe Hillel Gelbstein. And he wrote like an encyclopedia. It's called Mishkanos La'av Yaakov. It's like an encyclopedia of everything you want to know about Masechta Middos and how to build the Beis Hamikdash. He deals with everything and anything that deals with the Beis Hamikdash. And he came to a different conclusion. He came to the conclusion that even if there's no Beis Hamikdash, Jews are commanded to set up guard posts and have people, Kohanim preferably, Leviim, guarding the area of the Beis Hamikdash. V'herich shom b'rayas b'niglo v'nistu v'mozim yisoidach loichiach shem mitzvah naheges gam b'zman hazeh. He brought many rayas to prove that the mitzvah of watching and guarding the Beis Hamikdash, the Mokem Hamikdash, even applies today. V'gam rotza l'sakin l'maisa yushoim l'somach l'Mokem Hamikdash. He was even ready to set up a rotation of guards. This is in the 1840s. He was ready to set up a rotation of guards to protect, well, protect's a bad word, we'll see, to guard the place of the Mikdash, even though there was no Beis Hamikdash. And if you take a look in his Sefer, he's disappointed that many other Gedolim disagreed with him, and he couldn't get the rotation started. But he felt very strongly that the Mokem HaMikdash, that is a positive biblical commandment, like Lulav on Sukkot and like Matzah on Pesach. There's a biblical commandment to watch the Mokem HaMikdash with Kohanim, Leviim, and it could be done, and he felt it should be done, but he couldn't get enough Gedolim to support him in that endeavor. I'm now going down to footnote Vov. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on page Bays of the handout. We have a few minutes left for Masechta Middos. At the top, under the Siyata Dishmaya, on the right side, it says Tam Hashmira Umosai Hayushaim. Why do you have to guard the Beis Hamikdash or the Mokem Hamikdash? And when did you have to guard? Vida, you should know, the Tam Shmiras Hamikdash Eloi machmas pachad oivim oilistim ela machmas kovid. The reason why gods were put at the Mokim HaMikdash or the Beis HaMikdash was not to protect it from robbers. We're not worried that thieves are going to come in and steal things. The Beis HaMikdash, and God can take care of himself, Baruch Hashem, and we don't have to have guards there to make sure someone doesn't come in and steal some gold vessel. The reason why gods were necessary at the Mokim HaMikdash and the Beis HaMikdash is covered. This is a king's palace. It's a palace of the Melech Malchei Amlochim. And the way a palace is treated is with gods. I've had this conversation with many people. It's a yesod, it's a foundation of understanding a lot of things. The Gemara in Brachos on Daf Nun Ches, there's the girsa, the way it's actually written. There are two styles in which it's written. At any rate, there's a rule of Malchusa da'ara ke'e Malchusa d'rakia, or the inverted form, Malchusa da'ara ke'e Malchusa d'rakia ke'e Malchusa da'ara. God set up the universe in a way that his kingdom in heaven is a mirror image of the kingdom on earth, and the kingdom on earth is the mirror image of God's sovereignty in heaven, which means that there are a lot of things. We know that there are malachim in heaven. We read in Rashi's about the malachim were prosecuting, and then there are malachim that defend. There are kategors, and there are sanegers, and the prosecutor told this, and the defender told this, and we want to make sure that there's no prosecuting angel on Yom Kippur. And so we get rid of the prosecuting angel on Yom Kippur because the Gemara says Ha-Soton. The gematria of Ha-Soton is 364. Ha-Soton equals 364 because there's one day a year, the 365th day, which is Yom Kippur. The Soton is basically put in mothballs. He can't prosecute in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So there's this whole system, and the question is, what is this system? What does the Rebbeinu Shalom need? Defenders, prosecutors, a heavenly court. Rashi, Gemaras, Midrashim talk about this all over the place. The heavenly court decided this. The prosecuting angel said this. The defending angel said this. Who needs all these angels? The Rebbeinu Shalom can make his own decisions. And the rule is that the Rebbeinu Shalom, for reasons we're going to see it in the DaAs Tevunos eventually, is the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to set up his kingdom in heaven in a way that human beings can understand what's going on. People get very, very nervous, and people get very scared when they don't understand what's happening to them. They don't understand the rules. When people understand the rules, they can abide by the rules, and then they understand that if they violate the rules, there's ramifications. And if they observe the rules, there could be reward. But people like to know the rules. They don't want rules sprung upon them that they don't understand. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to understand what's happening to us. He doesn't want a world in which people are scared. People don't know what's going on. People don't understand how God's running the world. People don't understand how God judges the world. And that's the book DaAs Tevunos, understanding how God runs the world. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to understand how he runs the world. The way we can understand how he runs the world is our idea of justice is that there is a judge. And the judge doesn't just do what he wants. The judge listens to both sides of the case, which we call the prosecutor, the kateger, and the defense attorney, the saneger. That's how we understand in our minds justice. A judge needs to hear both sides and then come to a conclusion. That's how we understand things should be done. And even when we go to court within Torah, we're scared because we don't know how things are going to end up. But the idea is that it's less scary because in a good system, and I emphasize, in a good system, both people understand that they're going to be heard. Their stories are going to be heard. There are three. One, doesn't make a difference how many there are. neutral people, really neutral people, who are listening to the story and weighing both sides of the story, and are going to make a decision. And the decision is going to be considered justice. And the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to understand that the world that he runs is being run in that kind of fair system. Whether there are actually prosecutors and actually defenders is not the point. The point is that Rebbeinu Shalom wants to understand that the system that's being used in heaven is the same type of system that's being used here on earth. It's a system of tzaddik v'yoshahu. God is absolutely doing what is right and what is fair and what is just. And in order for us to understand that, our brains understand how things happen here on earth, and God created a mirror image above. In that context, God's Beis Hamikdash is his palace on earth. And we understand that a palace needs gods. That's the way a palace on earth is shown its dignity. It's shown its honor is through gods around the palace. So around the Beis Hamikdash, one of the 248 mitzvahs is to have shmira, guards, not protect from theft, the Rambam and the Mefarshim say, but for kavod. And the Rambam's words are, again, continuing on page 2 of the Siyat D'Shmai in the left column, She'ena doima platrin sheyesh lo shomer, Leplatrim she'ena lo shomer. It's just a completely different palace. If you walk by a palace and there are no guards, either the palace is closed down, somebody overthrew the king left, there's something going on here. What's wrong? Why doesn't the palace have guards? So the Rambam says a palace with guards is not to be compared with a palace that doesn't have guards. A palace needs to have guards for its dignity. And therefore, the Mokim HaMikdash or the Beis HaMikdash needed to have guards as one of the 248 positive mitzvahs. V'das roiv rishonim sheshmirazu mitzvos rak b'layim. The Rov Rishonim hold that the guards were only there at night. You didn't need guards during the day. The guards were there only at night. That was the mitzvah, and it was not a mitzvah during the day. The Minchas Chinuch, which is all the way at the bottom of page 2, the Minchas Chinuch comments, why would the guards only be there at night? It seems to be a contradiction to what we just said. If the guards are there to protect against theft, they need guards at night. But you don't need guards during the day when everybody can see what's going on. But since you told me that the guards are not there for theft, the guards are there just to honor and dignify the building, so they should be there day and night. Lahavdil elef alfei avdolos. If you go to Buckingham Palace, those folks with those big, tall black hats are there 24/7. They don't leave during the day. That's the kavod of Buckingham Palace. Those guards are there 24/7. So the Minchas Chinuch says, if the reason for the guards around the Beis Hamikdash, the Shmira, is for prestige, dignity, and honor of the Beis Hamikdash, they should be there day and night. And if the reason is dignity, again, they should be there day and night. That's the Minchas Chinuch Shita, but the Rov Rishonim hold that the Shmira of the Beis Hamikdash was a mitzvah only at night, not during the day. Okay, so what we learned so far today is we learned about how to look at the Beis Hamikdash from east to west. The north will be on your right side, the south will be on your left side. There were 5 gates to enter the Har Habayis. We're not talking about the Beis Hamikdash yet. Before you get to the Beis Hamikdash, you have to enter the Har Habayis. There was 1 gate on the east, 1 gate on the north, 1 gate on the west, and 2 gates on the south. And the 2 gates on the south we see today, when we look at the dig area, we can see 2 arches which are called Sharei Hulda Hanaviyah. So that's our perspective from east to west. We also learned today that one of the 248 mitzvahs aseh and one of the 365 negative mitzvahs deals with guarding the Beis Hamikdash. The reason the Beis HaMikdash was guarded, according to most Rishonim, has nothing to do with theft. It has to do with the dignity and the honor and the prestige of the Beis HaMikdash, and that's why the guards were there. According to most Rishonim, the guards were there only at night, not during the day. The Minchas Chinuch feels that the guards should have been there during the day as well, if it's only for prestige and not theft. And we learned about the Mishkanos Avir Yaakov, the Shita of Rav Gelbstein, that in the 1840s, when he tried to reinstitute the mitzvah of Shmira, because according to him, the mitzvah of Shmira is not necessarily when the Beis HaMikdash is there. It's the place of the Beis HaMikdash that requires dignity, honor, and prestige, even if the Beis HaMikdash is never not there. But he was disappointed in the fact that he couldn't get other Gedolim to agree with him, and therefore there's no rotation of people watching the Mokim HaMikdash. So that's what we've learned today so far about the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash requires Shmira. It's God's palace on earth. And we're going to continue learning Masechta Middos to build God's palace on earth. And through learning Masechta Middos, God is going to have Rahmanas on us. And the group will get bigger and bigger and bigger as the days go on. And more people will pass on the message that we're not learning Masechta Middos. We are building a Beis HaMikdash here from 10:15 to 11 in the morning. We're building a Beis HaMikdash. And Me'at Hashem, the Baruch will have Rahmanas on us and will send us down the Beis HaMikdash, whether we still need to add to it or whether it'll be fully built. We'll leave that to the Rebbeinu Shalom to decide. Let's now go to the DaAs Tevunos. You have this on your handout as well. We're using what we call Rav Friedlander's version of the DaAs Tevunos. There's also the Machon Ramchal version of the DaAs Tevunos. We're going to use Rav Friedlander's version because the footnotes here are very helpful in understanding the DaAs Tevunos. The DaAs Tevunos is a gift from the Ramchal, who was nifter in approximately 1746, approximately. He died at the age of 39. He died in Akko during a plague. And his body was brought to Tveria. And he's buried next to Rabbi Akiva in Tveria. And this is a gift from the Ramchal for Klal Yisrael, and specifically for our generation. The Sefer is written as the Ramchal had always chosen to write Svarim as a bikuach, people talking to each other. In this case, it's a healthy person, talking to himself. It's questions that the neshama of a yid asks his seichel, and his seichel answers the neshama. So it's a dialogue internally between a person, and it deals with how Hashem runs the world so that we can understand how Hashem runs the world. And Hashem wants us to understand how he runs the world. As we mentioned earlier, Malchusa Da'ara came Malchus D'Rakiyah, Malchus D'Rakiyah came Malchusa Da'ara. People feel more secure and comfortable when they know what is going on with them, when they know how they're being treated, when they know how the justice system works. People feel more comfortable, even if they're still a little scared, but they feel more comfortable than if they don't know what's happening with them, and they don't know how they're being judged. And so the DaAs Tevunos is based upon that premise that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to understand how he runs the world. So on the first page of the handout, Rav Friedlander, at the top of the page, put in his caption for what the first chapter or the introduction is about. And it's what we just talked about. Rav Friedlander writes the opening caption to the whole Sefer, Chovaseinu lahavin es hanhagas Hashem. It is our duty to study and understand how God runs the world. It's a duty. It's a requirement. God wants us to understand how he runs the world. God doesn't want a bunch of human beings running around scared out of their wits about what's going on. That's not God's method. God loves his creation. He loves Yidden. He loves the whole world. He loves Goyim. Goyim have their own mitzvahs. Jews have their own mitzvahs. They're all creations of God. The Rebbeinu Shalom loves his Bria. But the Bria has to be administered. It can't run hefka. And how he administers the world is with love. And sometimes there's something called, quote unquote, tough love. But tough love goes hand in hand with love. And it's our duty to understand how God runs the world so that we don't run around scared. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want us to run around scared. He wants us to understand how he's running the world. And that's what the Sefer is about. God's love for us is the central theme of the Sefer, how he loves us. He wants us to understand how he's treating us and handling the world. Again, the way the Sefer is written, it's a dialogue between a neshama that asks questions to its seichel, and the seichel answers the question. Aleph, Amra HaNeshama. The neshama said to the seichel, Ta'avosi uritzoni, my desire and my wish, l'hisyashev ktsas al devorim me'oisem shenemru behem v'hashevos el lavecha ki Hashem hu elokim. I'd like to spend some time getting a better understanding of the pasuk that we say 3 times a day. We say it in we say in Aleinu Al Kenekaba. We say in Aleinu. It's a pasuk in the Torah. V'hashevos elavavecha ki Hashem hu Elokim v'ashemayim imal v'ala oretz mitochas ein od. Let's look at those words. We say it in Aleinu. What do the words mean? It's a pasuk in the Torah. V'yadata hayom, you shall know. The word know means that I turned on my thinking cap. I turned on my brain. It means that I need to understand what I'm talking about. Yediyah means understanding. It means thinking. It means knowing. V'yadata hayom, you should know today. V'hashevos el levavecha, and it should turn into a belief system in your heart. Ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim imal v'alo mitochas. God is the one above in heaven and the one below on earth. Ein od, and there is no other. We're not going to go into right now what ein od exactly means, but the point of the Ramchal here is, it says v'yodata. There's more here than emuna. I believe God is the God of the universe. That's a belief system. The belief system has to start with a v'yodata. You have to know it. Knowing something means you have to understand it. Understand it means you have to think about it. Thinking about it means you have to delve into the subject and understand the facts, understand technically how it operates, and then you perform v'yadata hayom, and then once the idea, the understanding is solid, then it can go into your heart, and it become a belief system in your heart. But it begins with a knowledge system in your brain, v'yadata hayom, and then flows down into your heart, Harei hei meikare emunasenu, shechayev kol adam lirdov acharei yidiyasam, kol asher tasik yod. This is something that a person should chase after, so to speak. It's a goal that a person has to make for himself. To the extent he can, he should understand how God runs the world. Beis Amar HaSeichel. So the Seichel said to the Neshama, Ana ponecha moados, hine hoikorim hen yud gimel, bal eiznem tirtzi l'spoinen. The Seichel said back to the Neshama, what exactly do you want to understand? We have 13 principles of faith. For our purpose, we'll call it the Yud Gimel Hanimamins of the Rambam. They're not exactly the same for the Ramchal, but let's assume they are. We have 13 principles of faith. You know what they are. What exactly are the ones that are giving you trouble that you want to ask questions about? Amr HaNeshama, Neshama said back to the Seichel, Hine kol ha'ikarim hayud gimel hine heimu mosim etzli b'lishum safek klal. All of the 13 principles are absolutely true to me. I have no doubt about them, but they're part of my belief system. They're part of an emunah system. They're part of something that was handed down to me from my father and my grandfather. God exists, and God has no body, and there'll be tchias hamesim, etc., etc. This is a belief system. I was taught it, and I believe it because my father, my grandfather, it's been passed down from Har Sinai. אבל יש מהם שהם מומוסם לי וגם מובנים, ויש מהם שהם מומוסם לי באמונה, אך לא מובן מן ההבנה והידיעה. Some of the 13 I believe and rationally understand why they're true. And some of them I believe, absolutely. It's been handed down from Moshe and Har Sinai. I believe it. But I don't rationally understand how to explain it. I don't know how they make sense because it seems like they don't make sense. Amar Seichel, so the Seichel said, to back to the Neshama, which of the 13 do you fully understand? And which of the 13 do you believe in but don't understand? Amar HaNeshama, so Neshama said, Hine Metzias Hashem, God's existence, Yehuda, that He's only one, Nitzchiyuso, He's eternal, Veyosef Chutz Min HaGuf V'chol Mikra Guf, He has no body, Chiddush HaOlam, He created the world from nothing, Nevuah, prophecy, Nevuas Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu, special prophecy, Torah Min HaShamayim Nitzchiyuso Shlosh Shtana, that God gave the Torah from heaven and it will never change. Kol Advarim Ha'ela, these 9 things, Ani Ma'amenes V'ami B'Rivinosem. I understand and I believe. I don't need an explanation to them. Aval ha'ashgacha, the idea that God is watching over creation. There's a mashgiach, hashgacha, whether we're going to talk about hashgacha pratis or hashgacha klalis, God's watching the bria. I believe it, but I have a lot of difficulty understanding it, and I'll explain soon the neshama. The reason he has difficulty understanding it because it doesn't look like anybody's watching the planet. It looks like the planet is a hefkevel. It doesn't look like the teacher's in the room. It looks like the teacher left the room and everybody's shooting spitballs at each other and everybody's having a good time. As soon as the door creaks open a little and the teacher comes in, everybody's back in their seats with their hands folded on the desk. But for right now, it looks like teacher walked out of the room and everybody's doing whatever they want. That's what the world looks like. So Hashgachi, I believe the Rabbi Shalom's watching the world, but how do you explain the world as it's existing right now if he's watching it? Schar v'onesh. The second thing I believe in is reward and punishment. No question about it, but it doesn't look like that's happening because the good guys are not doing so well many times, the tzaddikim, and the Rishoyim and their ways and their theologies and their politics, v'chulu, seem to be the majority of the world. So this schar v'onesh, I believe in 100%, but factually looking at the world, it doesn't seem like it's actually working. Bias HaMashiach. This idea of Bias HaMashiach, that Mashiach is coming, I absolutely believe Mashiach is there's such a thing that he's coming because I have an emunah. My father told me, my grandfather told me, all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu, who taught us that there's an emunah, that there's a Mashiach going to come to perfect the entire world. But got me. I don't see how Mashiach is coming to perfect the world. What world is he coming to perfect? Most importantly, schar v'onesh, reward and punishment, which is the last thing I didn't understand because I don't see it happening. Bias Mashiach is a form of reward. Now, if I don't see reward and punishment occurring in the world, where would I understand Mashiach coming? I don't see reward and punishment occurring appropriately day to day in the world's affairs. How would I believe that how would I understand that there's a Mashiach coming, which is an ultimate reward for the world? On a day-to-day basis, I don't see reward or punishment. Fourth, Tchias HaMesim. Of course, Tchias HaMesim, Bechlal, okay, I believe it again, comes from my father, my grandfather. I say it in Shmoyne Esrei 3 times a day, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechai HaMesim. I got it from Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. We just went through Shvi Shel Pesach. One of the places we learn Tchias HaMesim from is from Oz Yashir. Oz Yashir Moshe B'nai Yisrael. And then Moshe will sing. Yashir is future. Why does it say a future? Moshe will sing, and the Jewish people will sing. And that's one of the proofs the Gemara brings to Tchias HaMesim. Tchias HaMesim is a pasuk in the Torah because it says Moshe and the Bnei Yisrael, who died a long time ago, they will sing. So you see this Tchias HaMesim. I believe this 100% because I believe the Torah. No question. But how do you understand such a thing? Tchias HaMesim. What's Tchias HaMesim? Again, we go back to question 2. On a day-to-day basis, in the affairs of mankind, I don't see Schava Onesh working properly. And if I don't see it in my life working properly, how would I believe in some future reward called Mashiach or some future reward called Tchias HaMesim? And again, we're coming off Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach. The Haftarah of Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach is the Nevuah of Yecheskel, which we call the Atzomas Hayaveshes, where Yecheskel did Tchias HaMesim and brought bones together, and the bones stood up, and they lived. They were living. So we're coming off Chol HaMoed Pesach of Tchias HaMesim, and we're coming off Shvi Shel Pesach of Tchias HaMesim, and yeah, we believe it. It's a pasuk in the Torah. It's a nevuah from Yecheskel, and it happened even in the days of Yecheskel. But I don't understand it. Amra Seichel, so the Seichel said to Neshama, Ma'u HaMiskashel Chobazeh. Okay, there are 9 of the Animamins that you believe and understand, and 4 that you believe but don't understand. And that is Hashgacha, Schava Onesh, Bias Mashiach, and Tchias HaMesim. What are your questions? Why is it so difficult to believe about? It's difficult to understand about those 4. And now we're turning to page Bays in the DaAs Tevunos handout. Amra HaNeshama, the Neshama said, HaMesibois, HaGedolos, HaMeshapchois Ba'olam. This is a play on words from Iyov. Mesibois, Gedolos, HaMeshapchois Ba'olam. The world is topsy-turvy. In other words, you're asking me why I don't understand these 4 concepts. It's really simple. I don't understand how anyone can understand these concepts because there are mesibois, mishapchois, hepach. The oilam is an oilam goilam, it looks to me like. The people who should be on top are on the bottom, the people who are on the bottom are on top, and all the events that occur in the world are topsy-turvy. People who should get rewarded seem to be punished. People who should be punished seem to be rewarded. And when I see the world the way it is, now the Ramchal's writing in the 1700s, you can imagine what language he would use in 2020. He's writing in the 1700s. I look outside and I don't see any hashgacha. I don't see the mashgiach in the room. I don't see the mashgiach in the room. He left the room and everybody's shooting spitballs at each other. And it's the survival of the fittest. The bully in the room ends up being the boss of the room because he's a bully until the teacher walks back in and the bully sits back down in his seat. But for right now, I don't see hashgacha occurring in the world. I see like we say in the mission at the end of Saita says, one of the simonim before Mashiach comes, because of the Mashiach, chutz biyaske. Before Mashiach comes, there'll be a generation where chutzpah, blatant chutzpah, will be widespread. Okay. And the more chutzpah that people have, sometimes we put our heads on our foreheads, we say, I don't understand, the guy's such a mechutzev. Why don't people just walk away from him? He's such a mechutzev, and he's so successful. He's such a mechutzev, and he's this. And this person, he's such a humble person, nobody gives him any attention. But this guy is an outspoken mechutziv, and he draws attention. Looks at the Mashiach Tzviyask. Where's the hashgacha? Kol shekain shein asor roya soifen yonam lehechen heimagiyim. Certainly, by the events that are occurring in the world, again, the Ramchal's writing in the 1700s, there's no way to understand where these events are leading us to. This is the insecurity that we talked about earlier. When you don't know what's going on and you don't know what world events are leading to, and you believe, God forbid, that what's happening outside is chaos, then it's very scary. Nobody wants to live in chaos. It's a very scary place to live. But if, as I said in the very first year before Pesach, when we were talking about the coronavirus, if we have an ani mamin be'emunah shalema, shekol ma shekore ba'olam ze lo chaos, elo hu seidem mesuda mehabori yisparach. If we believe deep down that what's happening in the outside world is not chaos, it's part of God's systematic approach to bringing Mashiach Tzidkenu, then while it's still scary what's happening, but we understand we're still in God's hands. As the famous saying now goes, wash your hands and put your life in God's hands. There's a systematic approach. God's running the world. It's not chaos. We're in good hands. Many times I give the mashal, you're on an airplane, and suddenly the pilot and the co-pilot get on the microphone. They say, folks, the pilot and I are going to have a game of chess, and we put the plane on automatic pilot, nothing to fear. And you're going to hear screaming and screaming of fear because they want to know what's going on. They need a pilot. Somebody's got to pilot this plane. We don't want automatic pilot. And sometimes we get the sense that the world is like running on automatic pilot. Like, where is the Rebbeinu Shalom? Where is the pilot? If we felt and really believed and understood that the pilot was in his seat and he was flying the plane, and even though he's flying the plane, it goes through some winds and some turbulence, but you know the pilot is there and he's controlling the plane through the turbulence and it's going to be safe. We feel better about it. We may still take out a Tehillim and say Tehillim during the turbulence, but we believe that basically there's a pilot there, it's going to be okay. So the Ramchal, the Neshama, says to the Seichel, what does God want from all these things that are happening in the world? Where is this leading us to? Ki ma'aseh Hashem yisbarach nir behem roicha kol kach gadol she'ein shum lev mechel oisam. The way things are happening, there's such great events happening that don't seem to be in a system, that it doesn't appear that a man can understand what's going on here. And I would appreciate it, my Seichel, if you can teach me a straight path to understand all these things that are happening in the world, so that I have a systematic approach and I can understand how God's running the world generally and how God's running the specific lives of each human being, and that therefore we can feel secure that we're not living in chaos, that we're living under the hashgacha of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Shama turns to his Seichel and says, can you please explain me this? And then with that understanding, I'll have more simcha in my life, and I'll be able to be more oived Hashem b'simcha in my life. And this is the beginning of the Hakdama of the DaAs Tevunos. We'll continue with the Hakdama Mi'et Hashem tomorrow. So Baruch Hashem, we started building the Beis HaMikdash today. The Rebbeinu Shalom had a lot of nachas ruach this morning from Yidden studying how to build the Beis HaMikdash, and we're bringing the Beis HaMikdash a step closer. And we'll also study a bit about the question about and it's the right. We have the right to ask the question. Many times we're silenced, and people say to us, no, you're not allowed to ask those questions. Just have emunah and bitachon. That doesn't work, and specifically it doesn't work today. People need answers generally, and specifically in the times we're going through now, people need answers. They need to understand that what we're going through is not chaos. It's a systematic approach that's going to bring Mashiach, and the Binyan Beis HaMikdash. Everybody have a healthy, a wonderful, a special day. Enjoy it with your wives, with your family, with your children, with your grandchildren, within the rules. The rules of the Mitzvah HaBriyat, they're a mitzvah to follow the rules. Nobody should take these rules lightly. The rules should be absolutely followed to the T without any coolness. Everybody have a wonderful, healthy day. Thank you for listening. We'll tune in again tomorrow. Kol Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.